What's the eternal principle?
Brahman.
Which is?
Well, we call it God, but that personifies it.
All right, everybody, it's that time again. FTG Podcast. This is episode 103. Very dope human being on today. My good friend, Tom Ramsburg. Tom is a published author. His first book is dubbed Hell or High Dollar, which is a fiction book. He's currently writing his second book. He's a brother Vedic Meditation Practitioner for the last 5 years. Sober guy, sober 13 years. Let's see, what else? He pumps out a newsletter every week via Substack called the Mindful Moshpit. I'll put the links to all his social media, his book, his newsletter in this episode in the notes, so you don't got to worry about any of that. And he's just an all-around dope guy, and we actually just stumbled into each other's lives probably 3 years ago through Vedic meditation. We started, stumbled upon each other on social media and this and that, and then we were at Temperance Training. Shout out Temperance Training. And in walks this big-ass fucking tattooed guy, just looking like he's mean mugging the world, which he really wasn't, but it's the tattoos. And we're like, oh hey, I stumbled, and then we just from then on, man, it's just been shoulder to shoulder. I was able to be at his wedding, and here we are. I think you've been on here like 3 times, man. Welcome.
For sure. Thank you for the kind introduction, my brother.
Yeah,
love you
back, man.
Love you.
Always an honor to have you on, man. I like just chopping it up with you. It's effortless.
Yeah.
And I think that's where all the good stuff comes from. And speaking of effortless, I cracked open your book the other night, a few chapters into Hell or High Dollar. And it's interesting, like going back through the second time as I'm starting to like kind of see your mind at work from the beginning, and seeing like the placement of the characters, and just obviously knowing how things end, and the foreshadowing, and what do they call those Easter eggs? Like
Easter eggs, red herrings, stuff like that.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Anyways, I'm stoked to have you on. What's been going on with you?
Man, life is like kind of a whirlwind right now. You know, a lot going on. We got the little guy. We got married right here.
Shoo.
Right outside Scott's house. You had me and Ben, and Ben married us, our good friend Ben, and just a beautiful night, and just a very small group, just a few of us, and it was a real special night. So that we were honored to come here, and that you had us into your home so we could do it out by the pool. That was a lot of fun. But we got the little guy. There's work going on. He's in daycare. Mom and I are both working, and cranking out the new book, just like getting up early, staying up mad late, working on that, trying to get it to the finish line, and working out, trying to stay fit, trying to eat right, do all that stuff,
How's the finish line look with the book? Where can you say like
we're heading towards it right now?
Yeah?
With the first draft of the new story it should be complete within the next couple of months. The next month probably, and then I'll go through and do my edits and take a second and third pass at it. And tighten it up.
Is this something that you kind of had moving while like writing Hell or High Dollar?
Yeah.
You had like an idea of that as well?
I did, yeah. And just like I had the idea for this book while I was writing Hell or High Dollar, I've got the next book kind of in the works as well while I'm writing this one, and this one is going to be a standalone novel. It doesn't have anything to do with Hell or High Dollar. It's a new set of characters, a new setting, but the next book after that is going to be a follow-up to Hell or High Dollar.
Damn.
Yeah. So Adam Lantana comes back.
So you got something in the works, man. I like this.
Yeah. always thinking of stuff, you know.
Yeah. What's the writing process look like? Is it like just sit down and write? Talk to me about like, is there always just like a steady flow of inspiration? Do you reach any? Yeah, like there's got to be like struggles and resistance in it, right?
Of course there is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk to me about that, because that's creativity. That's diving in.
Yep. Well, okay. So there's two different schools of thought when it comes to writing a novel, right? Some people they call plotters, and they do a very detailed outline of their story, how it's, how chapter to chapter. A lot of people do, So a lot of people do just chapter by chapter, scene by scene, and what's going to happen in each scene, and then they'll sit down and they'll write it out. Right. That's a plotter. Then there's another school of thought, which they call them pantsers, kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I'm more in the pantsers category. You know what I mean? I like to sit down with a blank page, just start typing, and then let the story just move through me, Now, that being said, I do have, I wouldn't call it an outline. I sit down and I write out a synopsis, okay? It's more of maybe a long form elevator pitch, This is what the story's about. This is who the main character is. These are the troubles he runs into, and this is how it may resolve itself eventually, But as I sit down and start typing, I kind of have the first scene and where I want it to go, and then I just let it just start happening. And that way, new characters will introduce themselves to me as I'm putting the story down, So I try to just make sure that I'm in a good place up here, I try and get connected. I try and get grounded and rooted, and I'll meditate, first thing when I wake up. I try and make sure that I'm in a good creative headspace so that inspiration can move through me, And some days when I sit down, it's not really happening, but I'll force myself to at least write something. I find that if I don't sit down to do the work, nothing happens, So it's impossible for that inspiration to hit, for the cool stuff that I wasn't thinking of to pour out of me. It's not going to happen if I don't sit down. I got to put myself in the seat. I've got to turn the computer on. I've got to open up the blank page. I've got to open up what I looked at and what I wrote yesterday, maybe tweak it a little bit and just get back into it,
Yeah, I can relate with that, man, because obviously I'm not sitting down writing a novel or anything, but just having like a creative outlet. I go through all this, the thoughts, it's like, what are you doing? You don't got shit to say. I'm over this. It's too much work. I'm just burnt out. That, like, all this shit. But like, without fail, if I push through, and I don't always, like, I've gone months without, I think like the longest I've gone without putting out a new episode is probably like 2 months. And I was okay with that. I'm okay with that. Right. But like when I went back to it, it was like, fuck, I've been missing out. Yeah. Just because like, and I don't want this to sound, well, it's like you write for yourself. Yeah. Right. So like when I say I do this for me, just because the inspiration came and I followed it and here we are. Right. Yeah. So like, I think that happens sometimes is like maybe some of the resistance comes because I feel like it has to turn out a certain way, rather than if I just sit down and spit and just show up, dude. Like even last week, I didn't want to fucking do it. I almost called Andrew and was like, yo, like never mind, let's just push it out. And I don't know if I was just tired. I just didn't feel like showing up. And it's not like it's work, but there was just something in me that I was resistant to show up to my passion, this thing that's proved to be like so beautiful in my life,
I think that's natural, that resistance. And you were talking about just now being attached to the outcome. I want this to look a certain way. And I think sometimes that can prevent us from actually sitting down and getting to work, because all of those things that you just mentioned will creep up with me too. A little bit less now that I got that book done. But while I was writing that book, I stopped. so many times, where you said you didn't do a podcast episode for a couple of months. I would put that book away for 6 months and then open it back up and look at it and start working on it. But each time I would pull it back out and start working on it, all of those voices would creep up in my head. Nobody's ever going to read this. Who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? You're an author now. You're going to write a book, And I wouldn't talk to people about it because I didn't want to expose that side of myself. Like, it was like this little secret that I had, I'm working on this thing, and I can't tell anybody about it because then it becomes real, and the few people I did tell about it encouraged me to keep going and wanted to see it. I can't show it to you yet. Like I just wasn't ready to go there with it, but those voices would say to me what you just said, who do you think you are? This is stupid. As a matter of fact, it's horrible. You know what I mean? You could never actually get this thing printed or try to sell it to anybody because, it's terrible. You suck. Who are you? You can't. You're not supposed to be doing this. So I would tell myself that over and over again, and then I would just stop. And that would make it okay for me to not be a writer because I had said to myself that I can't be, and now I don't have to take that chance and put it out there and let people tell me, oh, that book sucks. You know what I mean? So, and I just had to continue to fight through that, but like you said, like you do it for yourself, and this podcast has been good to you. It's been fulfilling. It's like a passion project. It's something that's beautiful. It's enriched your life, so why stop? I don't know why we do that, but we do. Like, we'll just cut out, this is good for me. This is beautiful. This isn't the way I express myself. Other people like it. They're hitting me up all the time. They want your shirts. They want to listen to your new podcast episode. But you don't want to do it because you feel, I think they call that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And now I want to talk about imposter syndrome. But first, I want to, everything that you just mentioned, the worst part about that whole thing is that we listen to our mind. Yeah. And we listened to our mind, and it changed our action. Like, it changed our response to life. Yeah. And I remember, actually, when we first met, you were real bashful about talking about it. Yeah. You were real, like, low key. And then for whatever reason, something shifted. You put me on blast on the podcast and started talking to me about, you asked me, so are you a writer? And I was like, oh, fuck, and talking about it publicly, really from the day, let's see, I think I was on in February of 2021. It was the first time I was on the podcast, and I held that book in my hand in September of 2021. So from the time that I was on your podcast and you got me to talk publicly about the book, I was like, now I have to finish it. Yeah. Now I have to finish it, and I have to get it off to print. I've got to get this thing published, and I've got to put it up on a platform for sale, because I'm not going to be the dude that is talking about, I'm writing a book, you know what I mean? Yeah. And nobody ever sees it, and it's in a drawer somewhere, and he was just talking shit, you know what I mean? So you really kind of forced me into, like, really taking it seriously and turning pro, I love that. Thank you for that. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to do that, but I love the fact.
It's all you.
Yeah.
You can take credit for that 100%. Because it's real.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So the listen. So, but I also think, like, when we listen to the mind and don't take, like, we need that, right? Like, we're gonna have lowest versions of ourselves, and we need that duality to get back to the highest version. Like, Emmett Fox, like, this quote always sticks to me, is like, spiritual progress, right, or this creative flow. He's like, it's like a tide of the ocean. Like, it rolls in, and then it rolls back a little bit, and then it rolls in, and then it rolls back a little bit. If we were just always progressing and never had to step back, well, we wouldn't have land. It would just be a planet of ocean, Yeah. But the imposter syndrome is a very real thing, because, we, like, for me, like, like, I work in treatment, right? So, like, I'm always talking about beautiful solutions to alcoholism, to drug addiction. Even on here, I'm, talking about, like, real, like just spiritual ideals, meditate, like all these things that have helped me. And I think the reason why I've been placed in a position in life to always talk about those things is because I need them so much. Personal, like just for me as a human, like I have an affinity towards it because like I need that shit. But like dude, there's impossible to live up to the pretty things that we talk about, like with these masters and Eckhart Tolle and all these guys that we study and we look at. Like, I think it's important to keep talking about them to like implant truth in the mind and have that pullback to when I'm like getting in resistance. It's like, no, wait, let me return to this, right?
Yep.
But yeah, the mind the mind talks shit, man. Yeah. The mind talks shit. And every time I don't listen to it and take action in spite of what my mind says, I realize I'm like, oh, my mind was just talking shit. I'm so happy that I was wrong and this was a great experience.
So that's a practice.
Yeah.
And so you've experienced it. You've taken a step back. You stopped doing it for a little while. And then you came back to doing it again to push through that creativity, that resistance and get back into creativity, right? So that may happen again and again and again and again. But the more times you do it, it kind of becomes more natural. Now you go, oh, I've been here before. I know what this is, you know, and it might not overwhelm you as much as it did before, you know. Kind of like the idea of becoming color fast.
Color fast?
Let me steal a story that Matt Cardone told us all one time when I was taking the Vedic course, right?
Okay.
So they have this these scarves that they wear, pashmina, I think they call it. You know, that white scarf blanket thing that Matt will sit with, you know, like, well, he was talking about in, I guess somebody told him this story. You could take, let's say it's FTG. Listen, anytime I'm in Rishikesh or in India in the Himalayas, people are always asking me about from the grave clothing. I don't know if you know that.
In the Himalayas?
I've never even been there, but but
great.
like, let's say you're going to make a shirt out here in your workshop, okay? You've got a white T-shirt and you want to turn it blue, right? Okay. All right. So you're going to take that white T-shirt and you're going to dunk it in a vat of blue dye, right? You just dunk it in there, soak it until it's just running. You can wring it out. You dunk it again. You get it out. This thing's dripping blue dye, right? Yeah. You go hang it on the line outside in the sun. Come back tomorrow morning. That blue shirt, what happened?
It got tinted blue. Blue doesn't hold that well, but it's changed a little bit of color.
Now it's maybe light blue.
Yeah,
because the sun's hit it for a little while, right? So what do? You take it down, you put it back in the vat, right? You dye it blue again. You drip it, you soak it, you know, you hang it back on the line. Another day goes by. It's a little more blue than it was the first time, but it's still faded a little bit. And you've got to go through that process again and again and again until at one point you've dunked it so many times, you've soaked it so many times. Once you hang it on the line, you walk away for a day, you come back, and it's still that dark blue. It's become color fast. The sun's not going to fade it any longer, you know? So how that can apply to the situation that you're talking about. Now, the more times that you start podcasting and getting creative and you're doing all the things that are, you know, moving you and you're feeling passionate about, that resistance kicks up, those voices start talking to you, start listening to it, you back away from it, then you come back to it for whatever reason and you start over again. Okay, now you're getting a little more color fast. It's starting to soak in a little bit more until at some point that's just not going to affect you any longer, you know? I would hope that that's the case. Eventually it's not going to affect you any longer. And that's when he was explaining that to us, it was kind of about the practice of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, when we meditate, this practice that we do, the expectation sometimes can be screwy. You know, people will get into meditation thinking, I need to blast off into outer space and to have this incredible spiritual experience and leave my body and this type of thing. And that kind of stuff can happen when you're meditating. But honestly, most of the time when I meditate, after, you know, X amount of years doing it, I sit down, I close my eyes, and I start thinking about work, and I start thinking about Rocco, and I start thinking about, you know, Juliet, and I start thinking about all the things that I'm going over Scott's tonight. We're doing the podcast, you know, I've got to write. How am I going to get fit? I got to do this before I get there. And, you know, oh, hold on. I'm meditating right now. So let's bring my focus back to my mantra. And the more times you do that, you know, you're going to have good meditations. You're going to have quote unquote busy meditations, am I doing it wrong? No, it's just I'm just doing the practice, But what becomes important is when I open my eyes and I go into waking state and I go and interact with other people and the world around me. Now, after a while of doing that and soaking myself in the spirit twice a day for weeks, months, years on end, now it's changed me and you become a little bit more colorfast. So, I could meditate, feel great, get in the car on the way to work and be screaming at somebody on I-95 5 minutes later. I'm out of it, I'm back to the world. I'm a maniac again, But the more I practice, the less I do that, The more likely I am now to say, oh, I guess that guy needs to get where he's going before I do, Go ahead, you got that, buddy. You know what I mean? It doesn't always happen, but it happens a lot more often today than it did before I started the practice,
Right.
Yeah.
And so like when that shit does happen, because it always will, like the bounce back is quicker, right? Like you come back to baseline quicker.
Yeah.
And I love that metaphor about the Colorfast, because once you've dyed the shirt, it's never going to go back. Like once you've dyed it a little bit, it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
So it's like people think like meditation, spirit, it's money in the bank. It's never just going to be depleted.
Yeah.
You're always storing it in the bank. Anytime, like you said, you do something for yourself until it becomes yourself.
Yeah.
And you didn't even realize it happened.
Mm-hmm. And you change, kind of like you're saying, a pickle's never going to be a cucumber again.
Right. It's
gone through that process, And that's all building character. It's character building, And guy told me when I first started coming around recovery, he said, Tom, you got to change your character. The character that brought you in here is the same character that's going to take you right back out. You remember the character that brought you in here?
Oh yeah.
What was he like?
Wild. Wild. Just really, really overly sensitive, radically insecure, just fool himself a lot, and he's just selfish, He mean well, but he just couldn't quite see,
So the work that you've done over the last 7 years or so is to build a new character, and now hopefully, I can tell you you're not that guy anymore, You may still have some of that shit with you, know. It's like I do. Like I came in here with all the stuff you just described, and then covered it all up with a bunch of tattoos and sitting in the back of my room with my arms folded and not talking to anybody. You know what I mean? Just, but that breaks down after a while. So today, like being sober for a length of time, like, and that guy that told me that I needed to change my character, like, I try to be involved with character building in every aspect of my life. I try, I want to be building a new character. So, is what I'm doing right now building a new character for me? Like, this is really positive what you and I are doing right now as we're sitting here talking to each other. So yes, I'm going to do this, I also want to build character so that I can be better at home with my family. I can be more present for my wife. I can be more loving with my son. I want to be healthy. I want to build a new character and be strong. You know what I mean? So that my body's healthy and it doesn't break down. So I need to go to the doctor. I need to get my eyes checked. I needed to get my nose fixed. I need to go to a cardiologist and figure out what this weird tick in my heart is. And like, there's all these things that I had all sorts of tooth problems. I need to fix all this stuff. You know what I mean? Because I have a son and I'm an older guy, so I'm going to be like a really old guy when he's in high school. And I don't want the other dads to be like, is that his grandfather? I just want to be fit. I want to be strong. I want to be able to keep up with everybody else. You know what I mean? So yeah. I need to take care of that. So I need to eat the right food. I need to build character. So is stopping at McDonald's and getting two double quarter pounders and a bunch of apple pies, is that going to help me build character? Or no, should I be at home in the kitchen cooking healthy food for myself and meal prepping and being ready for it? So I got to do that, you know. I just don't have a choice anymore. I need to continue to build character. When I'm at work, do I need to be scrolling Instagram all day? You know, do I need to try to look for a way to duck outside so I can like escape for a while, or should I stay on point, on task, and do the absolute best job I can for all the customers and stuff? Because what's ultimately going to help my family the most? What's going to build my character the most? You know what I mean? So if it's not building my character today, I'm really not interested. Not interested. You know, I had plenty of time to fuck around before I turned 40 years old and got sober, you know? So now I'm living on borrowed time. I'm just going to, I'm going to go ham, you know? Kind of got to.
Yeah. And like, I mean, that's a good point, man, because like we think it is like, that is everything you just described is the essence of spirituality. Like you're taking this psychic change and you're building a new motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't believe, like, me changing as a man is my fucking responsibility. Like,
for sure.
Nobody's going to come save me. No one's going to fix depression. No one's going to face my fears for me. No one's going to show me how to face my insecurities and all that. And the guy that I stumbled into recovery as was really fucking scared, and I felt, like, really unsafe. So I've, like, had a really, like, one of my biggest arena for character building, as you say, has been like fear. And it's taken me, and to face that willingly, like, because I had a, like, every time I listened to my mind when it said, you're scared, don't do this, and I said, you're right, I'm not going to do it, it was just all shame and guilt, because like deep within me is this guy who really wants to do it. It's a guy that doesn't want to listen to that voice and wants to be like, no, I'm going to do it. I don't care if my knees are shaking and I'm red or whatever. Like, I'm going to fucking do it anyways. And I never had the courage to do that. And it brought me all types of pain. So, like, as you said, like, this time around, it was kind of like this internal conviction came up. It's like, yo, you're going to either face this shit or continue to get put down from it. Yeah. And so like that is the calling for me, is seeing all my mind and how it's like, hey, there's a monster under your bed. You know, it's going to be really hard for you to sleep. There's a monster under your bed. Like, we all know monsters don't exist. But until you get out of bed and look underneath the bed and find out for yourself, nothing's going to change. You're going to continue to sleep like shit, you know? Mm-hmm. And I always thought that spirituality had to do with something like magical in the heavens and pray, and like all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, all that shit's awesome. Yeah. But at some point, like you just said, you're going to have to become like, conduct the affairs of your life in a business-like manner, and get busy taking care of yourself. Yeah. Because the three elements of me, I never took, mind, body, and spirit. My mind was a wasteland. My spirit was hollowed out, covered up rather, and my body I disregarded my whole life. Put poison in it, and so. Like, living in opposition to that way of life has given me like a really cool sense of pride, So
what do you do now for the mind aspect of that?
So it's honestly really it's what I was just saying is like, listen to it talk shit, and then I have two choices. I can say, yeah, you're right, I agree with everything you're saying, listen to it, and act according to what it says. You're scared, don't go do this. You don't want to do this episode, so don't do it. Or, evade this responsibility at work. Don't try hard. Don't look out for your coworker. Or, man, I'm tired. You should see if you can leave. Don't go to all this shit, all the, like, the preferencing mind. Like, it just always wants to seek comfort. So meditation has allowed me to like step back in a very real way and see the loudness of it. Like I called you fucking, was it yesterday I called you? Or the day before yesterday?
Or the day before.
And I was like, yo, my mind's just loud right now. I'm stressed out. I got this. And I was like, and I just needed to chop it up. And
you just needed to spit for a little bit.
I just needed to spit.
Once it got off your chest, then it was done. It was over.
Yeah, so like getting those thoughts out there, seeing the silliness in them or how they don't have any weight to them allowed me after that phone call to shift back into truth and be like, all right, I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
And it took 2 seconds to like, even at whatever, 7 years sober, I met it. Who gives a fuck? Like I noticed that I was jammed up and was like, I need to talk to the homie right now, you know?
Well, you learned that. You learned that through practice.
Right.
Because there was a bunch of times before when stuff like that happened and maybe you handled it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Maybe you came out sideways at somebody and then you were like, I wish I hadn't have done that, you know? Now you've probably called people enough times while you were jammed up and you know that works. And then you did it again, you know?
Yeah.
It's practice.
It's practice, and it's taking, and you start to realize when you practice a lot, you win a lot of games.
Dude, trophies are earned at practice. You go pick them up at the competition. I
like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that.
Make it in the kitchen. So, but you read a lot.
Yeah,
that's where I was kind of going with the mind thing. Like you read a lot, and I remember one time we were on here talking, and you were kind of talking about speed reading. You'd listen to some guys that talked about they could read like a book a day and all that. And you were like, I'm really into that idea of like getting all this knowledge in. And what's that look like for you now? Because I know you're reading a lot.
Yeah, I don't speed read. Honestly, I've always struggled with sleep. It's been very in my recovery. It's been very hard for me to get to sleep. I was on sleep medications for a long time, and so what I did was I bought a couple red lights, and I took responsibility for my sleep hygiene, and I said I gotta fucking do something different if I want to start recovering better, and whatever, be a spring chicken throughout the day. Yeah. So what I did was I was like, yo, I'm turning my phone off for an hour and a half. I'm
smart. Yeah.
Turning on these it's all over Instagram too. Like we follow all the health. Like that's what I love. This becoming this, this guy who's just, on all levels and just healthy, caring, spiritual, whatever. Like taking care of every aspect of yourself as a human being. So, anyways, reading, picking something up, and shifting my mind towards something beautiful at the end of the night, it started to and it wasn't trying to read and knowledge and get through a book. I was like, I'm just going to crack this. I finished another one. I'm like, I'm going to give Hell or High Dollar another shot. Yeah. And it wasn't about reading the book. It was about creating an environment to which I can rest and be calm. Now I read the last 2 books that really helped me a lot was The Untethered Soul and his next one, The Surrendered Experiment. I read that whole thing, but there's really just 2. I mean, I understand it to a degree, but there's 2 quotes that smacked me in the face, and they're just there. Yeah. And that has allowed me to practice and listen to this fucking mind and go, isn't that interesting? Rather than persecuting myself, like Matt had said, we want to become a scientist of our practice, not a persecutor. Like what happens when a scientist tries an experiment, right? He goes, isn't that interesting? I got to shift something, or that worked, or I create a new hypothesis or whatever. He doesn't take an experiment, it turns out a certain way, and he persecutes the whole thing and throws it in the trash and says, fuck this. Yeah. A scientist is about investigation and just, isn't that interesting? Now let's shift here. Isn't that interesting? And getting attuned to the mind and seeing how loud it is a painful thing. Yeah. It's not like building your character isn't fucking easy by any means. Like you're letting go of this guy. Like you said, where'd this guy go? Well, he was a guy. There was a guy that you were 13 fucking years ago. And if he ain't here, where'd he go? Well, he died. And death ain't a pretty process because he wanted to fucking hold on. He don't want to lose. He don't want to lose. So that clawing, creating a new narration is fucking hard, man. Yeah. But that's where it all is. And I was going to ask you, because you wrote this fucking awesome article titled. It was because you just recently celebrated 13 years sober,
Yeah.
right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Sobriety and Beyond.
Sobriety and Beyond.
Yeah.
That was the title. And I think that everything that we're talking about is the beyond.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, I mean, I read it obviously, but like, when did this beyond come to you and you're like, okay, we got to go further in a sense?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, what is that calling? What does it look like? What has happened with that? What is the beyond to you?
Well, it's in the back behind the towels and the shower curtains and stuff. When you're in Bed Bath and Beyond, there's like the bed, bath, and then Beyond is like way in the back.
Yeah, with Adam Sandler.
Yeah, where Christopher Walken's
Yeah,
back
he's
there.
got a remote.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Sobriety and Beyond. Well, okay. It was even when I sat down to write that article, I was like, let me not do this, because the last thing I ever, because I'm a fundamentals guy. I'm a back to basics guy. I'm a like, just as far as sobriety is concerned, it's 12 steps. This is the way I live my life. This is the way it was taught to me. You go to meetings, you get a sponsor, you get a commitment, you get a home group, you make coffee, you put chairs away, like you sponsor other guys, you read the book, like, basic stuff, So what's this idea of beyond? Like, you've progressed past all that, and now after you've been sober for a certain amount of time, you better have changed, And now I can honestly say it's not so much about the drink anymore, because it's been a long time since I thought about having a drink. It's been a really long time since the thoughts ever crossed my mind, Thank God for that, and I hope to God that it stays that way, because I know people that have been sober a lot longer than I have who've gone back out, But I kind of watch what they do, So I know what not to do, And one thing is not to get a big ego and to think I got this thing licked, So when we talk about sobriety and beyond, I'm not talking about being cured. I'm not talking about being onto some other level shit that I don't have to deal with this anymore, because I do. I still have to do the same fundamental stuff today that I did. And I think I wrote that in that story too. It's just, I have to do the same things today that I did when I started coming around. Now, after saying all of that, what we're really talking about is emotional sobriety. When I came into the rooms, all I could do was hold on to my seat and try not to get drunk. I was just praying, like, so sincerely, so desperately, don't let me get drunk, because I was pretty sure I was going to die, So now that obsession was lifted through 12-step work, through working with a sponsor, through meeting attendance for, years and years and years, a meeting a day, you know what I mean? That obsession eventually lifted. And now we start looking at, okay, I'm 13 years sober, but why am I so cool all the time? But sometimes when my wife and I are talking about this particular issue, I might raise my voice. I don't want to do that to her. What's wrong with me? Why am I doing this right now? I'm supposed to be the meditation guy. I'm supposed to be the spiritual guy. Why am I raising my voice? I'm 6'2". I weigh 240 pounds. I have a really loud voice. If I just raise my voice a little bit, it's bad, and I shouldn't do that to anyone, especially not someone that I love, So now we're talking, so those are my emotions taking control of me. And how am I going to manage that? Well, I have to look at where that's coming from, and I have to learn some skills, and I need to do a 10th step. I need to recognize the role that I just played in that. I need to make an amends, and I need to jump right on that, So things like that, why do I still have issues around, my relationship with my mom, which is pretty rocky, even after all this time sober, and how does that make me feel on the inside? And what does that bring up? Does that have something to do with what just happened between me and my spouse? So there's other stuff at play here. There's other stuff at work here. And what it all comes down to is wanting to be a better human being, right? I didn't get sober to be an angry guy sitting in the back of an AA room pointing fingers at everyone and telling all the newcomers that they're idiots. You know what I mean? Because I know lots of guys like that, you know, making fun of people on social media for... sometimes we laugh at those, you know, social posts about the program and stuff like that, but I really hate that. I don't enjoy that at all. Like, you know, it's kind of like poking fun at people who are trying and not quite getting it right, you know, because I was a guy that was trying and not quite getting it right for 20 years, you know. So any of those funny memes could have been said about me at any point along the way, you know. So so I guess the beyond part is really just like all the stuff that we've been talking about today, trying to build character 13 years in, you know, trying to take a look at what I can improve on today, you know, never getting to the point where I feel like I've made it, I've got this, I'm good, and I can take my foot off the gas, you know, because as soon as I do that, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a crackhead version of Tom Ramsburg outside the door, and he will beat the fucking shit out of me. You know what I mean? And he will cause major problems in South Florida. And nobody wants that, you know, especially my family and especially me, you know. So I need to be vigilant and I need to continue to work. And all of those things that we do, you know, whether it's exercise, meditation, writing, praying, making my bed in the morning, trying to do the best job I can at work, like those are all the things that are the beyond sobriety stuff for me, you know, but it all is sobriety, you know, because I got sober to be a better version of myself. And that's, I think, my job today is just to keep improving, you know, can't rest on our laurels. 'Cause moving backwards is actually moving towards a drink for me.
Do you know where that saying came from, resting on your laurels?
Nope.
I had to look it up because I said it all the time, and I'm like, I like to think I know what things mean, and I say them, and then I'm like, wait, I have no idea what this
What's
means.
a laurel, and how are you resting on it?
So a laurel, this is back from like ancient Greek shit, where they would wear like the laurel or the wreaths on their head, like you see like the pictures of these Stoics, and they have like a ring of leaves like on their head. So resting on, they would wear these things as they've achieved some type of success, and to put that on your head and then rest on it like I've arrived is to rest on your past successes. So basically resting on what I did yesterday. Like I'm going to live off the food I ate 3 months ago, which biology just don't work like that. So this is kind of a deep question. So why does all that work? Why do all these things you just mentioned work to change a man that was living in the rapture of insanity and could not stop drinking and drugging? Why does this 12-step thing work? Why do you think?
I think it's all just a really systematic process of smashing your ego deflation, you know, because I ran purely on self-will and on ego and fear, you know, and those things are all wrapped up together, I believe, you know. My biggest problem is that I'm scared of everything, you know. I'm scared of what people think of me. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose things that I have, or I'm afraid that I'm not going to get something that I want, you know. And I have an ego, and I think everybody's out to get me, you know, because if everybody was on my side, I'd have everything that I want already, right? You know?
Yeah.
So why am I living in a halfway house when I'm 40 years old? Why don't I have a car? Why don't I have a job? Why do I have to bum cigarettes from the guy? You know what I mean? Like, how did I get here? Well, it's because this asshole back in Philly did this to me, and that judge and that police officer and my boss, this guy Dan, wanted me to show up every day at 6 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't he know I was out last night? What if I'm 15 minutes late? What's the big deal? That guy's a dick, you know? Like, I just thought like that. It was everybody else was out to get me, was standing in my way of getting what I wanted. If they would all just cooperate, if they would all do what I wanted them to do, shit would be sweet. I'd have everything I want. And all that really was a giant bag full of crack and a locked hotel room. That's what I wanted, you know. But I needed to manage all of these things in order to make that happen, you know. And it never worked out because guess what? Everybody's on their own trip. They don't want to cooperate with me to let me do that, you know. They want other things out of me, and they want things for themselves, you know. So the 12-step process had me look at all of that stuff, you know. When I did a 4th step and wrote down all of the things that, you know, were wrong with me, basically, and had to take a look at them and the role that I played in the resentments that I'd created, I had to see how fucked up I was and how I was running on fear and selfishness. And it wasn't so much about drinking, I noticed, you know. I drank because I thought that was my solution to all of those problems. You know, I felt better. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel from one minute to the next, even now, you know. I don't know how I'm going to feel by the next question you ask me. I don't know how I'm going to feel when I'm leaving here, you know. But I know exactly how I'm going to feel if you pour a shot of whiskey right there and I take it and I put it down my throat. I know exactly how that's going to make me feel. Yeah. So that was control. And I was looking for control and I was of my feelings. And I was looking for control of all the people and things around me and stuff. But that's too much for anybody to manage. It's too much to ask, you know.
And it's not possible.
So you have to let go. What's that sound like? You know that passage in the book. It's the actor who's trying to run the whole play, you know.
So, I mean, dude, that was really powerful. What is ego to you? Like, what's the definition of ego? Because everyone says that term, and I say it a lot. But like, when we say ego, what is it?
I think it's your false self. You know, you have the greater self that we talk about in the Vedic practice. You know, the collective consciousness, the Christ consciousness, and the Holy Spirit. You know, in the Christian belief system, and you know, there's the greater self that we came from, that we could be connected to, but we're born. So it's funny because we just had Rocco, and I got this little guy who just came from that collective consciousness. He just came from the greater self, you know. So he had to learn that his name was Rocco, you know. He had to learn that I was his dad and that Juliet's his mom, you know. He's going to have to eventually learn that he's in kindergarten, that his birth date is this date, you know what I mean? That this is his social security number, that this is his zip code. He's going to have to learn all of these things, and that's an identity that gets imprinted on us. So for me, I'm Tommy Ramsburg. I'm from Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and, you know, and I go to East Pikeland Elementary School, and this, you know what I mean? And I like the Philadelphia Eagles, and my dad's name is Tom Ramsburg, and he works at Chilton, and you know what I mean? Like, that's the identity that got stamped on me. You know, I had to learn all of that stuff. So that starts to grow, and then these are the things that Tom likes. These are the things that Tom dislikes. These are the people that Tom likes. These are the people that Tom did. This is the type of music I like. So all that identity starts to build up, and then you think by the time you're 40 years old, that's who you are. I'm the guy that is bald, that has tattoos, that likes heavy metal, that, you know, was a crackhead for all of these years, that ruined it. And then you start feeling bad. So your ego, it's like, you know, on one hand, I thought I was God and I was in control of everything, and I could control everybody. And on the other hand, I thought I was a piece of shit. So like my ego's like, it's just that false self, you know. It's a total disconnection from any sort of a higher power or any connection to any spirit, or that actual self, which is the same self that you and I both share, and these guys share, and you know, that we all share. You know, that connection to the greater self, you know. That's separateness.
Yeah.
That's really not a thing.
Right.
You know? So I'm trying to learn from this little guy, because I watch him, and he doesn't give a fuck about any of the stuff that we just talked about. Yeah. You know what I mean? He knows when he wants juice, you know. He knows he wants to get up on the couch and bounce, you know what I mean? He knows that he's hungry. He knows that he wants his mom to hold him, you know, and he just asks for it, and then he just gets it, you know what I mean? It's just that simple, you know. He doesn't have to worry about all this other stuff, you know. I like that. I like that a lot.
Spontaneity.
I'd like to get back to that.
Yeah.
You know?
So as we start to develop this identity, it can be threatening.
What do you mean? Like, yeah,
like you said, like Rocco's coming, like I start to realize I'm Tom Ramsburg. I have tattoos. I like this, and this is how. So we start to like maybe like the world kind of puts a false self or just a creation and says, I am this now, and if I'm this is how I need to move through the world.
Yeah, and where do I fit in to all of these other thises? You know what I mean?
Right.
Where does Tom fit in with all of the other people, you know? Because other people that are my age have this type of a house, and they have that type of a vehicle, and they have that type of a job, and they have X amount of money saved in the bank. And God forbid I look on here and I start looking at what other people are doing and stuff, like, you know, and start comparing and all. And that's really when it gets threatening, you know. Then your ego starts to get real threatened because maybe I'm not measuring up. Or even worse, I start thinking I'm doing really good. Yeah. And then I start looking at other people like, he ain't got it like I got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something really fucked up.
Okay. All right. Decide. You got
this one time I woke up restrained in a mental hospital, right? In 4-point restraints. And I looked over to my left, and there was a guy in 4-point restraints. There was like a glass window between us, so he was in another room, but I could see him. But they had his head strapped to the bed as well, so he couldn't turn his head from side to side. And I was like, that dumb motherfucker. What the fuck did he do? You know what I mean? He can't even turn his head like this. I could go like this. I could go like that. Right? Not as bad as that guy.
What a loser.
Fucking loser.
Idiot. Good.
That's how screwed up this ego is, you know?
That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that narration is like threatening. And like, I remember this, I think I heard this guy say, well, I forget where I heard it, but someone said, we got two childhood, like when we think about like childhood, right? And the longer I stay sober and I look back and, you know, I look back in therapy and get this new language, and like you had mentioned, like growing up with your parents, or you were forged in a certain way, and just, you know, I mean, listen, me and my mom had bad times, you know, when I was wilding out, and how much of that is transferred into my relationships now. So anyways, like my childhood calls me back to look at it. And he had said something to the effect of, we have two childhoods, the one that we actually had and the one that we say we had. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like, so we, like, for instance, like you mentioned the 4-step, I come in with this story of my life and I write it down on paper. And then hopefully, like, if you do it right, as you move through it, you'll go, well, what if I was wrong? What if it really wasn't all these colorful, you know, I was animating it in such a scary degree. And that's what happens. It's like, well, what if you were just looking at it wrong?
Yeah.
What if you were okay? You know? And so my narration is like constantly getting changed. Like, for instance, the fear thing. What if you weren't really that scared, Scott? What if you just walked forward and it was okay? Because like what I've been being taught is like, you can have fear and not become fear and not wear it. Like you can say I'm scared and like put on that t-shirt and be like, I am scared now, or say, isn't this interesting, and move forward anyways. And I say I've mentioned this before, but like one of the biggest threats to my narration happened when I was 3 years sober. And I was suggested that I go to therapy, and I was like, I don't fucking need therapy. I didn't have trauma or this and that. And I thought trauma was like some catastrophic thing, you know?
Yeah.
I was mistaken. And so I went in, and you do kind of like, you know, you sit down for this first time. I don't know this fucking guy from nothing, you know, from a hole in the wall. So you sit down and they kind of like, you know, check you. And who are you, right? And he goes, why don't you tell me who you are? And so I give him the spiel, the 10-minute AA talk, right? And he goes, that's real. And he's in recovery, so for like 30 years, right? And he goes, that's real good, Scott. He goes, a lot of people that are in recovery give me their recovery talk, but I asked you who you were. And I was like, and he just completely disregarded my spiel.
Yeah.
And he said, fuck that. He goes, I asked you who you were, and you gave me your recovery talk. He goes, wrong. And he just completely fucking, like an enforcer, like, yeah, we don't care about all this shit. Like, let's look at your part, right? It's like, oh, yeah, cool. First 3 columns, great. Like, who gives a fuck? Now tell me about yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's what he did. 3 years sober.
So where'd that take you? Like, did
Into
you
the
did you even
unknown.
know? Did you even know?
No.
Yeah, that was his point, probably.
Yeah. And I was like, I immediately regret this decision. You know what I mean? But it was scary, but it was also exciting.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. And I had this curious feeling of I just opened something up and I don't know where it's going. But if anything I've learned in those 3 years was every time I figure out that I'm wrong, more freedom is on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So that was like the practice. There was this character that was built within me just enough to go back for a second appointment.
Yeah.
Say, let's see what we got. Let's see what's going on in this office here. Because he just disregarded my whole story.
We're about to have a new experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, I work on accepting not knowing where I'm going, what I'm doing in my life, and just being like the Rocco. Right now I want fucking juice.
Yeah.
Right now I want to do now I want to get on the fucking couch and bounce. He's not worried about what he's gonna wear for the day.
No.
What am I gonna make for breakfast? How am I gonna get to kindergarten? Like, he's not worried about any of that. He's in complete spontaneity.
Well, the more you...
Am I saying that word right?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. John.
What'd you
said
say?
yes.
Complete spontaneity?
Yeah.
That makes sense as a sentence anyway.
As a sentence.
Yeah.
It was a spontaneous thing.
I think the more that you practice meditation like we do, right, the more you can quiet that busy mind, and then you come back out into waking state and you go throughout your day. Now you've just been soaked in that spirit, in that collective consciousness. You and I know a technique that literally allows us to turn our thoughts off, when it happens. And it's beautiful when it does. So, and then you get to experience that and you know what that feels like. And now you come back out into your day and now you can be aware and you can notice, oh, I have a preference for this. And you can lean into that, Something's telling me I should turn down this street right now. Don't know why. Turn down that street, run into the dude that you've been thinking of actually talking to about, these, oh, is that a coincidence that I ran into this person when I had that thought to turn down the street? I guess you could say it's a coincidence until it happens like 20, 30, 40, 50 times.
Right.
And things work out. And then all of a sudden you have this cool podcast and there's dudes here with cameras fucking videoing the thing and you're going to put it on YouTube. Like the more you lean into that charm, what feels more charming to you and you follow that, those are signals coming to you, I believe, from that higher self, from that collective consciousness, from that Christ consciousness. Like you're attuned, you're like a radio receiver. You're set to the right channel and you're ready to receive those signals, and then all sorts of beautiful things happen, But if you don't tune yourself in, if I wake up, God forbid, and I haven't done this for a long, long time, but if I wake up late for my day, throw my clothes on, run out the door and get in the car and start driving, I'm really headed down a bad path. I set myself up for trouble, So, but I have a practice, that way I start off my day tapping into the spirit, and I have a little routine that I follow that kind of gets me set. So now my eyes are open and I can notice the signs and I can follow the path's going to light up, You just have to be attuned so that you can see it, and then you can make the choice not to go down that path.
A lot of experience there.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, it's always, the signal's always coming at you.
Yeah.
It wants you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's like I'm walking around with earmuffs. I'm like, la, 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 la. All you got to do is say earmuffs. You can say whatever you want,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to hear it. And so, yeah, meditation has allowed me, I guess, to, take off the proverbial earmuffs. And then you start to just kind of shift and follow. And then you realize, like, man, life really wants to take care of me, and it's really good at it.
It is.
You're like, Rocco, I'm good. I'm safe. I got this great guy. I got my mom. I'm good. He is in the essence of safety.
Yeah.
And as a result, he's fine. He's moving.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I want that childlike faith and safety. And I think it's possible to have now at 34.
Yeah,
34 years old, And I would, and I say this with humility, like, I have that, not all the time, but I have like enough of that has really, really changed me, and to wake up and be safe. And that is like, I never realized how unsafe and scared I was, or how unsafe I felt, until I became safe.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you don't realize. My buddy Brian, actually, Brian Murray, he has this really cool metaphor that I always like make him share. And he's like, you want me to share that? He's like, it's not even that good. I'm like, no, share it. So he's a hockey guy, right? Have you ever gone ice skating or ever do hockey or anything?
Street hockey.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I can't ice skate.
Okay. So
Brian's from way up there in Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts.
Mass.
They skate up there.
Mass,
right?
yeah, he skates.
Yeah.
So anyways, I've done the ice skating thing a few times, and if you have, how uncomfortable the fucking skates are. They suck. Your feet are jammed in them. It's really, really tight. So you got to stay over the blade. Like, it hurts. You're just bending your foot back and forth. Like, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he said one time, and he goes, I'd be playing hockey for hours. And he goes, when I took my skates off, he's like, I never realized how much pain my feet were in until I took them off.
Yeah.
He goes, I was just used to it. I was in it. It was like, it was normal. I'm skating now, and this is just what it is. So you get like this, almost like this, the literal term for that actually is called sensory adaptation. Like when you wear a hat all day and then you forget you're wearing a hat, you become adapted to it. And so he's like, I took these skates off, and I'm like, and he's like, fuck, man, my feet are killing me.
That relief.
Yeah. So like, you got to bounce back between the two. It's like, and I'll forget all this beautiful stuff we're talking about, and I'll get jammed up and, miss a morning meditation or whatever. And then, but the remembering is the beautiful part about it. Like calling you and being like, dude, I'm jammed up. I got blah, 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 blah. And then having that change. And
then you're right back.
And an 8-minute conversation. And the remembering is the beautiful part.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah.
I was just, I was listening to the loudness of the mind. And I go, yeah. Yep, you're right. This is loud. This sucks. Blah, blah, blah. But until you're willing to like take action in opposition to that, you'll never get the chance to remember.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful way to live, man. So there was something else I wanted to ask you, because you're a big music guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And like, everyone most people like music, right? But like, I think there's like levels to it. Like, you can really like music, and then you can be like, no bands, know where they came from, know their story, and you do, like, you're that guy, right?
Yeah.
And even throughout your book, Hell or High Dollar, you put quotes. I think there's a couple Rocky quotes in there and movies and stuff, but the majority of your quotes at the beginning of each chapter are music quotes, right? Lyrics, yeah. Music quotes, lyrics from the songs. And then you also, throughout the book, will embed soundtracks into, like, you'll be, Windy and Adam Lantana in the car, and the tape deck has Black Sabbath, this song playing, whatever, right? So it's like weaved through your whole story.
Sure.
Why has this become so powerful to you? Like, what is music to you? Why?
What is music? I mean, I don't even fucking know, dude. It's like this all powerful creative. I think it's like the ultimate, like, I write stories. I write, in articles and books and stuff like that. And that's one form of art. Other people paint, and there's acting and all that kind of stuff. But there's something about music. Like, we went to Alice in Chains together. We went to Tool together. You know what I mean? Did you look around and see 20,000 people all moving to the sound and singing the lyrics to those songs and
Yeah.
stuff. But what is that?
Yeah. I don't
How
know.
powerful is that? Something about all of that for me. So that's a spiritual thing. It's magic as far as I'm concerned. The people that can do that and do that well are making magic. But then, like we talked about this before, like the whole name 3 songs idea and stuff. When some young girl is wearing a Led Zeppelin T-shirt and doesn't know who the band is and stuff, and I've gotten past that. Like, I think that's okay now. Like, that's just people are just going to do that. You're not changing it. It's 2023.
All vintage.
But at a certain time, like when I was a kid, the music that you listened to was, for me, it was a big part of identity. That false self that we were talking about before. You know what I mean? So those guys listen to that music. They're that type of person. These guys listen to this type of music. They're that type of person. Those girls listen to that type of music. They're that type of person.
And
so,
if you listen to that music, like if you listen to metal, you dressed and embodied metal. If you if you were a punk head, people knew you were punk by how you looked.
a lot of the time, yeah, you know what I mean. But then there was guys that were into it that didn't necessarily wear denim jackets or have long hair and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, that's like, you kind of went around and wore that as a badge of honor. Like, this is my shit. This is what I'm into. You know what I mean? That's why it kind of freaks out older guys when they see younger kids wearing shirts of bands that they don't know, you know? The weirdest part about that is sometimes you could find like the wokest person online talking, you know, some really woke stuff, but they're wearing a shirt from like a satanic metal band that like the guys in that band have actually done some really horrible things to people, like murders and like really bad, and it's very well publicized and stuff. Yeah. And they're just like wearing the shirt like shit's sweet, you know what I mean? And I want to like comment, I'm like, yo, but I don't, you know. That it gets a little silly to some. So I think you should look into like what you're like putting on your, what you're going out there with on your shield, you know what I mean? But yeah, music was like always a big part of my day, of my life, of, you know, going to shows was everything, you know, when bands were coming to town that I wanted to see, like you do anything we would go on crazy road trips all the way to New York City to go see a band that, you know, we couldn't see in Philly, and, you know, have no money to get back with gas and stuff like that, and doing the Roy Rogers stop and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, those things all really happened, you know, but you just do anything just to be in front of those people that were making those sounds. You've got it all in your phone now, you know. You can go down a rabbit hole in 2 seconds and know everything about a band, you know, if you spend like an afternoon just watching YouTube videos and stuff, interviews, the history and stuff like that. That wasn't available. You had, back in the day, you had records, you had record releases. You depended on the guy that worked in the record store to tell you what shit was cool and when new shit was coming in. Hey, you should check this out because you like that and stuff. There wasn't like a suggested, you know, video feed of like, oh, you like this? Well, then you might like this. And, you know, there was none of that, you know. And then there was zines, magazines, right? Printed, you know, magazines either, you know, from the real press or from guys that would staple them together and send them out like this one right here. Can I talk about this one for a second?
Hell yeah. So
Sam Harrelson, good friend of me and Scott. Scott put us together, actually. Is a guy that moved here from Virginia. And this is a zine, right? So zines, back in the day, you would get a zine and it would be like a heavy metal zine or a punk rock zine. And it's literally, it's not Rolling Stone magazine. Okay. It's not Spin magazine. It's not, you know, Hit Parader or Circus magazine. It was a magazine that was printed and made. The articles were written on bands. And it was just like,
would the bands put it to, the bands would make it?
Sometimes a band would do that, but usually it was a fan. They called them fanzines. That's where the term came from. Okay. Right? So you would get these and you could subscribe to them, and then you would get the zine from, like, let's say a record label or from a kid that like put this together, and he's hipping you to all these new bands that you never heard of, and there'd be pictures and photos, and you could order from in the back sometimes, you know, get the record sent to you and stuff like that.
It reminds me of like the skateboard CCS magazine.
100%.
You remember that?
Same idea.
Bangers.
Yeah.
Okay.
CCS was more of an official printed
it got
publication.
that way.
Yeah. But like, so Sam with that punk rock spirit, because that's where he comes from. You know what I mean?
He's one of the guys that wears it.
Take one look at Sam, and you know that's him, right?
Dude.
You know?
Yeah, 100%.
So
Patches,
he put this
denim.
thing together. He leaned into this creative, endeavor and put this together and put it out just last month, right? So if it's okay, I'm just going to read what he wrote in the beginning.
100%.
So this is a zine.
What's it called?
Now, I just went into a whole thing about music, right?
Yeah.
This isn't about music, okay?
Okay.
But he comes from that world, okay? So it's got kind of that same spirit. It's called Sunrise in Dystopia is the name of the zine, right? So I'm just going to read to you what he wrote here. This is Sam Harrison's writing, okay? So it's not mine. This is what Sam wrote here. On April 26th, I flew to Delray Beach, Florida for what I thought was going to be another 28-day tune-up. I had burned my life to the ground yet again due to my struggles with drugs and alcohol. I had done a number on myself this time and found myself in a truly hopeless state. I ended up staying down here in the good old Sunshine State. The past 6 months have been a wild ride. I ended up getting a job renting beach chairs for the rich tourists and snowbirds who represent everything I find disenchanting with modern America. I would wake up every morning and ride my roommate's janky bike to work for $64 a day. I was newly sober in a strange land and just trying my best to start my life over again. But it has been a struggle to say the least. I would get to work early and watch these sunrises. I got in the routine of biking out there even on my days off to watch them and reflect on life. It was in these moments that I started to find some inner peace, despite my external circumstances. These were all taken between August and December of 2022. I was not able to include every sunrise I saw, but I have included my favorite 32 pictures. Most of them are taken at Delray Beach, but a few were taken on trips back to my home state of Virginia. I hope they can bring you at least a sliver of the joy they have brought to me. Big shout out to my homie Ash for helping me put this all together. So, and then inside the book are these photos that Sam took, his favorite 32 photos of sunrises when he would get to the beach early to do his job, renting beach chairs to the tourists. But he'd get a few moments of peace, snap some of these beautiful shots, and he printed them all. And then on the back, there's a picture of Sam and his mom. He says, "This zine is dedicated to my mom. She can beat your mom at pool." You know? So his name's Sam Harrelson. He's Slappy McGillicuddy on Facebook.
Right.
You can get at him if you want one of these. Hit me up, hit him up, and just really cool in the punk
Shout
rock
out
spirit.
Sam, man.
Yeah.
Fucking A, man.
Really
Lean
cool.
into that shit.
Love it.
Love it. Super creative guy, and that's a guy that is calling him to lean into that.
For sure. I just hope he just never stops doing it, you know?
With a guy like you in his life, I don't think he'll be able to stop. That's how it works, right?
Let's go.
Yeah, baby.
Let's go.
So, and then you said you're doing something with Zach, Red Rum Society, like
yeah.
the
Can I
coffee
look
shop?
up the date?
I think you said March 2nd. Was it?
I think that's exactly right.
Okay. Yeah. 'cause
Okay.
Zach's-
Yeah.
Okay.
So on March 2nd, from 6 to 9 p.m. at Third Place Coffee Lounge in Boca Raton. That's like right off of Yamato in Boca. Zach hopes an open mic that's Red Rum Society. There'll be people there doing comedy. There'll be people there playing music. I believe that Zach is playing, and I'm going to do a little reading, what you would call a spoken word performance. So I might read a little Ramsburg poetry, you know. Maybe read a little bit of that book right there. Maybe read a little bit of the new stuff I'm working on, and just be an all in all fun time.
I'm stoked.
Melt some faces. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this was an incredible conversation. I mean, this
was a fun one.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Blew my wig back. From where I'm sitting, man, I'm like, holy shit, you know?
Right on, brother.
So, but look, man, I love you. As always, thank you for coming on. I know there will be more to come after this.
Absolutely. Anytime. It's an honor to be with you, Scott.
Always. Love you too, man.
Stay metal. Let's go.